Breach coming to you. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I got about an hour and a half before I go to work. This is going to be a good long video. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No. I'll knock this out as fast as I can. I want to get through every story that I have to say. This is going to be about my TNA Bound for Glory trip that I just got back home from yesterday. And in order to tell all these stories and in order to get it out, all out there on the table for all you guys to see. Honestly, before I left to go on this trip, honestly, I think everybody knows that I was kicking rocks. Hogan decided on October 1st that he was going to go out there and test the free agent waters, and he was going to see what else there was to offer for him, and he wasn't going to be a part of the Bound for Glory weekend. I still had hopes. I still had dreams. It seemed like every day there was a different story out there about what Hogan was doing, whether if he was coming or going, and I was right there with it, and I truly did believe that Hogan was going to be there. But it was a really fun weekend. I think I got every dollar's worth and more. I can honestly put it out there on the table and say that it was probably one of the funnest trips that I've ever been on. I've been to WrestleMania 26. I've been to WrestleMania 27, 28. Hanging out with Mario was a blast. I only got to see my buddy Miguel I got to talk to him for about 2-3 minutes before the show. I met a lot of good people there through the travel package. A lot of people I gave nicknames to, just because I wasn't all that well at remembering names. I remember there was this girl, Ashley. There was Steven with the P. There was Gary. There was the guy from Holland. There was another guy that was a big wrestling fan, who his grandma had paid for his trip, and he said he cashed in 2 birthdays and 2 Christmas presents in order to be there. I thought that was pretty cool. There was a guy who looked like Buff Bagwell. There were 2 guys that came from the UK. One of them that I swore was Sourcey. But they were all around, real good people. TNA put us up in the hotel, which I believe was like the San Diego Marriott. It had some fancy name, and it honestly was a really fancy, nice hotel. With a ballroom and meeting rooms in order to meet the capacity of everything that was going down for the Bound for Glory weekend. I honestly think that the TNA people took care of us the best they could. There were small complaints along the way that people honestly did listen to and make notes that they would pass along the way. Upon flying into the show, we didn't have any trouble leaving Sacramento Airport. It was just a normal flight into San Diego. We walked to the airport. We found what was the Super Shuttle. If you're not going to be using a car all weekend, there's no use in renting a car. Our hotel didn't offer a free shuttle, so this thing picked us up at the hotel, drove us to the airport the morning of. It was round trip for $24. Honestly, I thought that was a really good deal. We had a really early flight, and I didn't want to have to wake up early in order to call a cab in order to pick us up. So booking through this on the internet, they knew what time our flight was, and they told us what time they'd pick us up, and they guaranteed that we wouldn't miss it. So for $12, I thought that was honestly a real good deal in order to come pick us up and everything like that. So I highly recommend the Super Shuttle Company. They took care of us, and they were a class act. So keep that in mind. We just didn't rent a car basically because we knew the TNA was going to keep us busy the whole time. The only time that we really would have had to kill was the morning of the show from about 11 to 2. There was really nothing to do, no downtime. The wrestlers weren't there, so there was nothing to do there. So basically, we were in the bar and we watched football. But even if we did have a car, we wouldn't really have time to really go out and do anything unless it was really fast. We did meet these guys. They were from they were based out of the Houston area, but one of them, they might have both lived in San Diego now that it comes down to it. And they were really hyping us up to go to this Lucha Art Show. I can't remember what day it was. It might have been the first night we were there. But honestly, it would have been really fucking cool to go to that thing because they showed us some videos from this thing. It was $10 to get into. It was to show off artwork, but they had 5 lucha matches inside the ring, and it probably would have been really badass to go to that thing. And that was a really cool dude to hang out with as well. So we missed out on that, but he ended up being a car ride story that comes up later along the way. Um, so I don't even know how to fucking get into this. There's so many stories, and when we go to the WrestleMania stuff, basically it's easy for me and my brain to remember the good stories along the way, because it's broken up into like different places. When we're doing this, the Bound for Glory thing, you never really leave the scene of the crime. It's in it's all in the same ballroom. It's all in the bar. So the stories mixed together because the scenery never really changes. You're in the lobby. You're in here. Basically, I don't even think we left the property the whole time we were there, except for when we jumped on the train to head down to the show, and then we just came right back to right where we were. That's why these stories might run together, and I might jump around per days. But basically, we went up to the room. We dumped our stuff off. We knew that the wrestlers were going to be coming in and checking in and out along the way. So basically, we had a few hours to kill before our meet and greet that greeted us there, and we were able to, start the party off the right way. But we went down. We went and did we go to the bar? Or did we go to the lobby? I don't know. I think we were just sort of chilling there, hanging around, moving around, trying to see everything there was to see around the place. And as soon as we're there, we sort of go outside because Mario really liked that they had this setup where they had free water. There was strawberry water. There was coconut. No, not coconut. I apologize. It was cucumber water. They had this fruit punch. They had this lemonade, and it was free. They just had it, chilling out there. He was living the high life, and we were drinking the free drinks. And basically, one time we went over to get a refill on the water. We noticed that inside the pool of the hotel was Jeff Jarrett, Jeff Hardy, and a whole cast and crew of wrestlers. When I told the story about going to SummerSlam this year, I had said that we were in the hotel where the wrestlers were, and there was like a ballroom set up at the end of a long hallway where if you went in there, we noticed that Stephanie McMahon and Triple H went in, and then other wrestlers came in and out. It was like his setup of his war room, where like he was talking to all the wrestlers, telling them what was going to be going on at the show, probably planning out what was going on with their character in the future. So they sort of knew what was going on, and there was probably like that little bartering system that where I'll give you this if you give me this, like wins and losses and shit like that. But Jeff Jarrett, who I guess is now back with the company doing like TV work, where he's the agent for the shows. We noticed all the wrestlers were coming to him, and they were all sort of set up around him, and one by one they would go up to him. Jeff actually showed him he pulled out of his bag when he was talking. Hardy showed Jarrett the ring stuff that he was wearing. He pulled it out of his bag, and he was like showing it off to him. So we got a quick look at what that was going to look like, and then they talked about some shit, and then AJ came in, and AJ was sort of like showing him how he was going to be like working out of the match. Like he was showing them as he was talking about his match moves. He was doing like the pantomiming, I guess you can say. That was really, really cool. Just to be able to see that from the whole weekend. Jeff Jarrett was one of my goals. I didn't know he was going to be there, but Jeff has always been one of my favorite guys. And oh shit, I'm already fucked up. But he's always been one of my favorite guys. And whether if it was Jay, the country music singer, or whether if it was in WCW with the Slapnuts and the NWO crap, or whether it was in TNA. If you don't have his TNA DVD, which I guess is a 4 DVD set, you're missing out on something. But basically, one of the times we went up to the hotel room, I think in order to get our stuff and come back down to the lobby, it was the first time that we met Paul. We didn't know Paul was going to be up there. He was actually staying on our floor. And when we were all, we had, I think me and Mario were just there by ourselves, and we were waiting for the elevator to come down or come up or whatever to pick us up, we heard Paul's voice out in the lobby, not in the lobby, in the fucking hallway. So we step back, we go back, we get Paul, we bring him over to where the elevator is, tell him we're coming down. And as we walk up to the elevator doors are just about to close. So I run 2 steps and I stick my foot into the elevator thing so it stops, where I get my foot in between the doors. And I hear, whoa! And it opens and we all pile in, and I'm like, oh shit, I just scared the shit out of somebody. And I'm looking at him sort of like with the same blank look of when I met Mick Foley at Disneyland, where like my brain is telling me that this person is someone that I know inside my memory banks, but it's taking time for, you know, the memory chips to figure out who the hell this person is. About the time that I'm trying to put this together, Mario sort of puts it together, and what's up, Jeff Jarrett? We're on the fucking elevator with Jeff Jarrett. It doesn't get any better than this. It was awesome. It was way cool. We talked to him the whole way down, all 30 seconds. By the time we asked him to get a picture, the doors opened, and a convention was laying out. We were sharing the hotel and the convention space with some sort of fucking college, high school, smart kids convention, and they all had these red sort of lanyards, so you knew who the smart kids were. The people that were with TNA, we had these black lanyards, so we know those people were with us. It was kind of funny because the students that were staying at the hotel, none of them were really wrestling fans at the time, but they sort of knew that these people were famous, so they'd always sort of be coming up to us, and they'd be, you know, asking us, who's this, who's that, and normally when you got down to saying who Jeff Hardy was, you could always get a few people to say that they remember the Hardy Boys from the WWE, and then you were able to, from there, to match them up and say, hey, remember the Dudleys? They used to fight them. That's Bubba Ray. He's the champ right now, and most of the guys that weren't in WWE, they sort of got a blank look. But you were telling them, okay, well, that's Velvet Sky, and she's the hottest chick in wrestling, and there's Brooke Tessmacher. She's right there with her. Sort of cool stuff like that. So basically, in the first little bit, we're there. We've met Jeff Jarrett. We've found Jeff Hardy. We've seen AJ Styles. Really, really cool stuff. In the first day we were there, the first day alone, I met Jeff Hardy 4 times. It was almost to the point where I didn't want to really fuck with him anymore because I didn't want to be that guy. But basically, he was one of the guys that I brought the most shit for. And basically, what we had came up with as a plan, as the guys we were hanging around with, was the more shit you get signed today, the less shit you have to carry around at the Access tomorrow. And we really didn't know how many people were going to be at Fan Interaction, and we just didn't want to be being in everybody's line if we didn't have to, if that makes sense. That was at that time when we didn't know how many people were going to be there. So, I mean, I got Hardy to sign his book, and I was actually the first person, I think, to get an autograph from Hardy, and the autograph that came out in it was really, really bitchin' cool. I don't want to show you all my autographs right now, but this one stands out. It was probably one of the coolest autographs I got all weekend. So he put a ton of work into it. It wasn't like a lot of the other ones that I saw throughout the whole week where he drew the bitchin' moon face. You know, a lot of times if there's a lot of people around, you just got a real fast sort of hair squibble. Like his normal autograph that I've gotten before is this with this, and it's hard to make out what Jeff Hardy is, but that's a really bitchin' autograph. I think I was the first person that got him as he came out of the pool right then. But is that all the stories from being at the pool? Because I think I didn't get Jarrett the first day. I think it took me another day in order to get Jarrett. Jarrett was a ghost. Out of everybody that was there, Jeff Jarrett stayed in his room a lot, or he was at the pool, and it was hard to get him away from where his family was, and nobody really wanted to approach him when his whole family was there. But he ended up being a real class act. There was a time when he knew that a lot of people really wanted to get him for pictures and such, that one of the times that he was in the pool, he actually came out of the pool and just did a real quick thing where he signed and took pictures for a whole bunch of people, made sure everybody got what they needed, and they stepped back into the pool, got his stuff, gathered up his kids, and he came all out knowing that we wouldn't fuck with him. And I thought that was really cool of him because even though that he is like the just an agent now, and he's not wrestling. He knows that a lot of people know that he's what put TNA on the map, and TNA wouldn't be that without him, and that he is a big star. I think that if there wasn't the politics of him leaving during the whole China thing, and maybe if he wasn't with this whole TNA expansion deal, he's somebody that I'd have on my list as a guy that I think would be a Hall of Famer. I think Vince would give that to him as somebody that went out and they started their own territory. Maybe it didn't get to be huge, humongous, huge, but I mean, like, in order to grow it to the point where it has its own national cable deal on Spike TV, this, that, and the other, you got to give him his props. Plus, being the mid card champ for so long, and going to WCW, becoming the champion there. And sort of changing the way that the business looked at the guys of his size. Damn good wrestler. Maybe some people might not think that he's WWE Hall of Fame worthy, but I think he is going to be one day. I mean, I think everybody's going to be in there someday. But he's closer to the top of my list, and I understand the reasons why he's not there. And I think I've already stated all those. But I mean, like, when we were just, chilling around the hotel, it was very easy to get almost any wrestler that was there. If there was I'll just put this out there right now. Out of all the wrestlers that were on the card for Bound for Glory, and there any wrestler that you can think of that would be there, I got a picture and an autograph with every wrestler that was there except for EC3. I didn't get a picture with him. And then there was Jeff Jarrett. I didn't get an autograph from him, but everybody else, like I said, Jeff Jarrett you had to hunt for. Kurt Angle you really had to hunt for, but you were able to get him. When we went to the bar, as everybody knows, the wrestlers stay at the same hotel as the fans do. They don't keep us separate. They don't keep us different. They all were at the bar, from Samoa Joe to Hernandez. James Storm closed the bar down every night. Nux was in there. Garrett Bischoff. All of these guys, and any of these guys that you saw were in the bar. Bully Ray was in the bar every night. Chris Sabin, Velvet Sky, and they were all easily very approachable. Bully was the only one that you sort of had to stand guard with. You had to make sure that he wasn't involved in a conversation. You just sort of had to wait for the conversation to end and wait for your right time of attack. If you win at the right time, you got the bully bear on you, and nobody wants that, because that'll scare the shit out of you. He will let you know that he didn't appreciate you cutting in on his conversation. Oh, I just got juice on my face. But anybody else that was in there, if you just sort of, stood there for a second, they would make sure that they had time to do anything, anything that you needed, anything that you asked. Pictures weren't a problem. Autographs weren't a problem. Talk to them about a conversation about anything. I found out that when you were in the bar and you were talking to people, you could ask them any question in the world, and they would honestly give you a very, very true answer. When I met James Storm, which was one of my favorite wrestlers in TNA, I honestly think he should be world champ. I was glad that he dropped the tag belts, because he'd be moving on to bigger and better things. Even though he did make me sort of believe in Gunner a little bit more, and made Gunner a guy that I sort of want to root for in the same way that I root for him. I didn't really like Gunner the heel character, but Gunner as a face, that just sort of like, I'm here, we're gonna fight, and we're gonna see what's gonna happen, is the kind of guy that I can sort of believe in a little bit more. I don't think Gunner's the kind of guy that I really can see being a world heavyweight champion, but he's a guy that I can root for along the way to at least pick up some wins and have some believable feuds that we can wish for. His true story about his real life is pretty bitchin' and pretty hard, but I mean, Storm was the first guy to say it to me. Like, I was just saying, like, hey, when you won the belt, it was awesome. You brought it to our town, and in Sacramento, you had just lost. You and Rude had an awesome match, and you tore the place down. And I'm just truly surprised that they've named you a true #1 contender, and then they've had you lose it a few times, and we saw you do the main event match at Lockdown, and we haven't really seen you get back to where you should have been." And he just, flat out says that it's politics, and he doesn't play politics. He ain't no ass kisser, and when he gets there, he gets there, and he understands everything that's going on. But he says if you truly want an answer, it comes to politics, and politics was just the true, name of the game. Almost every guy, said the same thing, from Kaz and Daniels, to Rude. I heard it from Garrett when I was talking to him about Briscoe. Um, you know, it's almost like another mini WCW over there. It feels like, especially when you bring up the name Hogan. Hogan wanted to do things Hogan's way, whether if it was a mid card feud, whether if it was a main event feud. He just had his own vision on what TNA was supposed to be, and if you weren't on his list of favorite guys, you just didn't matter. But I got a picture of me and James Storm holding up a beer in a bar, which is probably going to be my favorite picture that I've ever taken with any guy ever. I got the picture with Mick Foley at Disneyland with him wearing the Santa Claus shirt. I thought that was pretty bitchin'. But honestly, I'm pretty proud that I was able to get the one picture with him. We went to the fan interaction. Well, I guess it's like a mini fan interaction where you came in, you picked up your package. Bob Ryder was the guy handing out those. And when you went in there to the main deal, you were met by Christy Hemme, Samoa Joe, Robbie E., Magnus, fuck me, what was his name? Joseph Park was there, Eric Young. We had seen them cruising around the hotel all day. And during that fan interaction thing, they had just came out and they were filming the videos that they were making, stated that they had just made it to San Diego, even though we had seen them all day, but that we were part of them filming the skit during our little thing, which was pretty bitchin'. In that little room, honestly, I was pretty scared about the turnout to what Bound for Glory was going to be. It didn't seem like there was a ton of people there that bought the packages, and I thought that fan interaction might be pretty slow and low. I was hoping that they got a lot of people that were just going to be in the area that were going to drop in, because that room didn't look that big, and Magnus was in there as well. But we were actually pretty lucky because there weren't so many people in there. Like, I met Samoa Joe. I didn't want to be the guy that got 4 autographs from the guy at the one time, but I had 4 DVD slips that I had brought down there for him. So I got one at a time, and as I got the third one signed, I said, I don't want to be that guy, Joe, so if I'm bugging you, just let me know, and I'll kick rocks. I'll get out of your way for the night. And he said, no, man, I appreciate it. Somebody's got to buy these DVDs, and it looks like you did, so you need me to sign them, you just tell me how many you need, and it's no big deal. He just said thank you. And so I was able to get all those signed. I got 2 pictures with Joe. Magnus was cool to talk to. We talked to Magnus. I sort of walked up to Magnus as he was having this conversation, because it was only just him and just one other guy. Everybody else was sort of crowded around it. I felt bad for guys like Robbie E. and Magnus, because the people had come and they hadn't sold us any merchandise yet, so we didn't have programs. So these guys, we really didn't have anything for them to sign unless you were getting the this Bound for Glory poster that they gave us, like this. Some people were just using this as like an autograph sheet and just getting everybody to sign it top to bottom. Mine got a little bit beat up and bruised along the way. I didn't do that, so I just sort of sat there. But I thought it was cool that I was able to talk to Magnus, and one of the conversations got started around was about his helmet that he wore when he first came in. If anybody can remember the helmet, TNA, they didn't go out and actually buy a helmet that was made for his head. They found a helmet online that was supposed to be like a collectible, as sort of like a piece that sort of sat in the corner of a room and just looked pretty, bitchin'. And when he got it, it was too big for his head, and basically he had to walk really, really slow with it on his way to the ring, or it would fall forward or it would fall to the side, and he would look like an idiot. So he had to learn how to just basically walk without doing anything, and then getting into the ring was hard. You had to walk and sort of not. He couldn't move his head along the way. They were able to sort of like transform it where there was a baseball hat put inside, so he was able to put on there. But he said even that didn't make it too steady. And the second that they were able to ditch the helmet and get that off him, he thought that it was an awesome idea. He talked about how stupid Vince Russo was for coming up with it, and then we were talking about Ric Flair and Spartacus and WCW. That story came up, and then he started talking about the only thing he could think of every time he was wearing it was just becoming the Shockmaster, with the video that just came on with him sort of walking to the ring and the thing falling off and rolling towards the ring or something like that. So he tried his best to make sure that he didn't. And somehow along the way it came up, where does all this shit go? Because everybody knows about the WWE sort of warehouse that they have where they store all their shit. CM Punk has gone there and tweeted a whole bunch of pictures of stuff. And he said that they filmed him going there, walking through there, and they were going to put it on his DVD, but I guess it didn't make the cut. I know they have one clip of Kofi Kingston online on the WWE YouTube of him walking through there. Maybe they did it the same day because they're travel guys, and they sort of filmed Kofi go one way and they filmed Punk go the other direction. But it turns out in the Impact Zone, they have different sort of locker rooms along the way, and one of the locker rooms that Magnus used to get dressed in, he said it was Magnus, the Machine Guns, Joe, and some guys like that. They would go into one. He said that there really was cliques, and the main event guys would go one way and the other way, but this seemed to be the guys that he would always get dressed with at a constant. But one day there was this closet in the corner that always was all locked up. So one day they broke in to this closet to see what was in there, and it turns out that it's like the Island of Misfit toys for TNA. The stuff that they buy for the guys to use as sort of like get their gimmicks over. He said his helmet was in there, and just all sorts of outfits and wardrobes and skit things that they had used was just thrown into this closet, sort of like to be forgotten about. Maybe if they ever opened up a TNA Hall of Fame or something like that. But he said it might be hard to find, but if you went through all the shit they did on YouTube when he was a part of the World Elite, and he was honestly really surprised that I told him I was a fan of the World Elite. I told him that the reason I was a fan mostly was because I believed that Eric Young at that time was a real good leader of the group, which he immediately yelled out to Eric Young that he had found the first World Elite fan, and pointed at me, and Eric did this face where I was like like he was like he didn't really like it that much either, I guess. I don't know, but I thought that there was one point in Eric Young's career that he was really believable at what he does. I think he's a really, really good wrestler. I think that the one thing that Colt Cabana always says that Cornette said was that funny doesn't equal money. I honestly think there's a place for comedy wrestling along the way, but I mean, somebody like Eric Young, who they sort of try to make believable on the way, where he main evented the main event where Scott Hall no-showed TNA, and then they had him in Lethal Lockdown this year. Anybody who's involved in Lethal Lockdown, a part of Team TNA, who's on the decisive side of them getting the win, and then 2 weeks later is sort of like nowhere to be seen on TV, still involved in a marriage angle with ODB, involved in a tag team with the Abyss, Joseph Park, isn't really going anywhere, and it sucks to be him. But he has his fishing show. It seems that he likes to be in TNA, and I guess he likes to have his job. So awesome dude. But I guess you can say, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm fucking saying right there. I can't save that one. But I guess if you go through all the World Elite skits on YouTube, you might be able to find where in one of the skits they had the Magnus helmet as sort of like in the middle of the group, but it was turned upside down, and they were using it as a cooler. They had filled the Magnus helmet with ice, and they had beer in it, but it's upside down, so you'd have to really sort of focus in on what you're looking for. So if you can find a World Elite skit online where they have a cooler full of beer, look at it. You'll be able to notice that it's the old school Magnus helmet. and I thought that was a cool story. Immediately after hearing that and him ripping Vince Russo, I went up to Samoa Joe and I asked him, yo, what the fuck was the deal when you got kidnapped? What was even supposed to come out of that? And he looked at me like, I never got kidnapped. And I'm like, look, Joe, I watched the show. I know what was going on. You got kidnapped, then all of a sudden you just sort of, came back as a dude with a knife and you were ripping people up, and then, 2 weeks later you were in the main event mafia and you just were some dude again. And he was like, look, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. If they got drugs around here, you let me know. And he just sort of put it off that, I should go ask Vince Russo what was going on. It seemed like Vince Russo was going to be the name of the game when it came to jokes and stories along the way. Robbie E was a cool dude in there. Christy Hemme was awesome. She made sure that the party didn't stop. They had free food in there for us to greet us with. It was they had chicken quesadillas. They had a lot of Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Diet Pepsi, stuff like that. They had these mini slider burgers that had bacon and mushrooms on them. Those were good. I tore those up because I knew I wasn't gonna be getting any more food that night. I think I had like 6 of those. I had like a whole bunch of those chicken quesadillas. I know I had 2 Pepsis in there. Really bitching. When you signed in and they gave you your package, everybody got one of these, sort of like an original Jeff Hardy pick that he had already, signed. And that's like the weak autograph, I guess you could say, without the big old moon face on there that I got. That was really cool. They gave us our package with our seats. They didn't have a seating chart. They told us that we'd be front row, but they told us that it was, sort of luck of the draw on who got the camera side, which we lucked out with. I don't like this cup. Every time I drink something out of it, it splashes me in the face. But so he said it was just to be sort of luck of the draw. Luckily, I was able to put it on Twitter asking for somebody to send me the map. One person did. So you're out there, I say thank you, and I do appreciate it. Really bitching that we got the front row seats. As I was leaving, everybody knows my grunts and gripes about the travel package from Team TNA. I locked down Bob Ryder and I said, look, I don't know if this is your job, but when I was asking around on Twitter, you were the one person I was sent to, and you were the one guy who gave me an answer about him. So if you have a minute or 2 minutes, please just listen to my grunts and gripes about the TNA travel package and pass them on to whoever you can. And he just said, the travel package will never get better if nobody tells me about it. So please, I will listen to everything you have to say. And I just told him that I wish there was more communication, and I wish that, when somebody emailed or somebody called down there, that somebody would get back to us, because I just told them that, we waited to buy our plane tickets because we got a receipt and we were scared off by the receipt because at the bottom it said, no need to ship. So no need to ship to me meant that like maybe that you guys had sold too many packages and our order didn't go through in time. Maybe, I just didn't want to be the guy who flew all the way to San Diego thinking I was going to be going to, the TNA show. And then once I get down there, I found out I didn't have a hotel, didn't have a ticket to the show, and have to scramble around to find all this stuff, which sort of seemed like it racked home to him, and he really apologized, and he said that, he understood everything. I was like, don't call me every day, but, just call me or email me one time saying, this is what's going on with the tickets, and we're going to, thank God that you bought one, and we're glad you're coming, and, this is, the day that you can get your shit. I was like, I really hit the fan when, like, a month came, and we didn't have, any reservations or anything like that. I called the hotel to make sure that they had something for my name, and they didn't have anything, and when I mentioned TNA, they didn't know we were coming. And like at that point, it was like, I don't even know what's going on. But he listened to everything I had to say, and it seemed that like he remembered my face, because every time that we went somewhere, if he saw me in the bar, if he saw me at the Access signing, he always would come up to me, ask me if I was enjoying my stay, if there was anything they could do, and I just told him that we by the second day, I really felt that we had got our money's worth. Just by going to the fan access and meeting all the wrestlers the day before, hanging out at the bar was fucking awesome. But that sort of rode out the first day. I met Kurt Angle as he was checking into his hotel. He was the only guy that honestly had security. The security sort of showed up about a half hour before he got there, and just sort of stood around the hotel. And as he went to go check in, I slyly, nobody really saw what was going on, but I sort of went to my table and got my book for him to sign. Mario knew I was doing something, so he came with me, and I was sort of trying to say as low as I could, angle, angle, angle. And then we went over. I was able to get Angle to sign his book. I think Mario got him to sign something. Mario's camera had died, I think, or his phone had died, so we didn't have any juice. So I had to grab mine. I had to go back to my table as slyly as I could, grab my phone and get out there. And by the time I got back out there, I had found out that the security was doing the shutdown on Angle, and he was being sent to his room, I guess. You go to your room, Kurt Angle, you're in trouble. But I was able to get the book signed. I was happy enough with that, but I made it my goal that I knew that I was going to get Kurt Angle's picture by the time it was all over and said and done. I said that, we were going to do it. So basically, the bar closed at 11 o'clock, and by 11:30 they had kicked everybody out. And we had made a real good pack of friends, and we'd all sort of sat down in the lobby, and we just sort of sat in these chairs. We sat around, and the wrestlers came in and out and around us, and basically they had all left because the bar had closed early. And at one point, Velvet Sky came back, and it was around midnight, and her and Chris Sabin, she came into the hotel. She walked immediately into the bar, and the bar was all shut down. There was nobody in there. And as she was sort of looking around like, what the fuck? I yelled at her. I said, hey, Velvet, the bar closed. They kicked us all out at 11:30. And she looked at me and she goes, what is this, Wyoming? And I said, yeah, I thought we were in San Diego. What's going on with this? And so we had a good laugh. She walked outside with Sabin. And as they were sitting outside, a whole group of different wrestlers, ODB, Garrett, and all them, had sort of, came in, and they were mingling outside as they would, as they started to trickle inside to go upstairs, go to the room and call it night. Eric Young sort of regrouped, said he'd already called the cab, and they were all going to some bar. And so they were sort of all mingling around outside, and they would all poke their head in one at a time for something. I was able to get Bully Ray, and he was able to, nice enough to sign an autograph for me in my encyclopedia, which I thought was pretty bitchin', because honestly, he was one of the, if it wasn't in the fan access, it was kind of hard to get an autograph from him. Somewhere along the way, a bitchin' brawl broke out outside, not a real brawl, but like a wrestling match, which I think Magnus did the job in. But Nux and Garrick Bischoff and all those guys were all, throwing blows outside. ODB got in there. I think she was the one that made the pin on Magnus, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was just funny as a fan to be able to see all this sort of nonsense that goes along with it. Somewhere along the way, we met Jeff Hardy as he went to go buy beer. Met Jeff Hardy when he came back with his beer. We called it night. I think somewhere around 2-ish or somewhere around there. Went upstairs. We went to bed to wake up the next day with our fan access starting early. I don't remember if we ate breakfast that night, that day or not. I know that I got a chocolate milk. I know I got a 5-hour energy from the thing about her. I don't remember if we ate any food. Oh, I know what it was. When we were waiting down in the lobby, my buddy Gary, who was from Orlando, had bought 3 pizzas. And we had ate the pizza the night before, and I took a box up that had 2 pizzas left. I ate 2 pieces of pizza. What Mario ate that next day, I had no clue what the fuck he ate. But we went into the fan access. We were amongst the first people in line. We sort of went to the AJ Styles line first, knowing that he was going to have the longest line in the place, which was true. Meeting AJ was cool. Wished him luck in his big match. Thanked him for being there. He gave Mario and he gave Paul tips on how to do the glove thing, where the gloves would match up so the picture wouldn't look stupid. But I thought that was pretty funny for him to do that. From there, we went over and we did the whole room in a whole hour to meet Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode sort of has that face where he's like, "Don't fuck with me." But honestly, like, everybody sort of thought, everybody had mixed feelings that Bobby Roode was the coolest dude in the world or Bobby Roode was an asshole. I think that if you just stood there and put your stuff in front of him, Bobby Roode just signed it and took the picture, and he just sort of moved on, saying, "Oh, what a dick! He didn't say nothing." But if you talk to him, he gave you a good discussion about shit. I told him that I really appreciated TNA coming to Sacramento. It was a great show, and with him and Storm, they came out, and I had found out from talking to Storm the day before that he actually had a concussion. But since Angle didn't make that trip because Angle was hurt, he didn't want to pull off the show as well, especially with how hot his character was with just losing the title. He went out and wrestled with a concussion and still was able to have a great match. Um, I just said, thank you. The whole show was really good. The whole show was really fun. But honestly, his match being the championship match, even though it wasn't the main event, we got our money's worth, and I really appreciate it. And he thanked us, and he said that Sacramento was a good town. He had some fun there, and he really wished that Sacramento would be on the list of places that we would go back. And he thanked me for coming to the show. He asked me if I needed another picture, if the one picture was good. And I said it was great, and I said thank you very much, and we moved over. And as I said, like when you met, when you met Rude, if you had to go out of your way to make sure that you talked to him. Kaz and Daniels were the next guys that we met. They made sure that you talked to him. As you came up, they greeted you. They were wearing their new shirts, and they were openly telling you that you had to go to ProWrestlingTees.com, which is the one that sells the Cabana shirts. It's the one where I bought the Jay Lethal shirt. That's the blue one that says Jay Lethal, best in the world on it. It was like the Breaking Bad thing, but it says bad influence on it, and sort of like the chemical bar chart. Sort of thing. I thought they were pretty bitchin'. They took a picture, they posted it on Twitter. If you go to one of their accounts, you'll find it, and you'll be able to get linked to the shirt and be able to pick it up. But it was green. It was really bitchin', but they made sure that you talked to them. As you walked up to them, they greeted you. They said, "Hey, what's your name?" And then they almost raced to give you an insult. Like when they met me, I was already laughing at the person that they were ripping into before me. So they started calling me Ed McMahon, and then "Heyo," and making fun of the way I laughed when they met Mario. They said, "Hey man, what's up? What's your name?" He said, "Oh, my name's Mario." They said, "Oh, I love your cart," which is of course on Mario Kart. And I thought that was pretty good, which I immediately laughed at because I thought it was funny. And then they went into the Ed McMahon routine. Oh, and they started making all these sort of Carson jokes from back in the day. Which I guess if you're not my age, you won't understand who those guys are. But the guy who gave away the money in those commercials and mailed the shit to your house, who had the house with the black mold, who lost all his money, and same old shit. But as we made our way around the room, Austin Aries was nice to it, which was sort of surprising. Garrett and Nux, I talked to Garrett about Briscoe. He told me that he thought that Briscoe would be back. And I said that I thought he was really good talent. It didn't make sense that you guys weren't wrestling more tag team matches, because it seems like the group would have been stronger if you guys were going up against Gunner and Storm to make Aces and Eights, have the titles. I know that they didn't have an X Division guy, but maybe the X Division would stand alone. But if you guys had the tag titles and you had the World Heavyweight title, you guys would be looking pretty bitchin'. And it always, makes a heel group stronger when you have the belts in there. Even though I think now it's sort of made the Shield weaker, because WWE sort of treats the Shield like they have the titles, so they don't need to win all the time, and because even if you lose, you still got the gold. But back to this. Garrett and Nux. Nux was honestly probably one of the nicest wrestlers that I ever met. Talked to him about having his match against Aries, what it was like to be under the mask the whole time, and how bad they smelled, and just like he said, like, you can be the cleanest guy in the world, but you get underneath those lights, you're gonna start sweating. And he said they only give you one mask, and you got to keep it as long as you can. They don't really like it when you lose the shit, which goes into a story from the last night, the night of the pay-per-view. He had one of the original Aces and Eights beanies, and he lost it, and he was openly really, really apologizing to the guy who drove the merchandise truck around, and he was in charge of the merch and stuff like that, saying that he thought he lost his beanie from that night at the show, and he had kept it since day one that he came in, and it was going to suck, and if he could find him another one, he really, really would appreciate it. I know a lot of people like to joke around that, like, Abyss wears a mask that's the same as the one they sell at the shows and stuff like that. But um, the masks that the Ace and Eights guys wore were more than likely, it sounds like, the same ones as that they sold on Shop TNA. But Nux was honestly one of the best guys, and he just was openly just telling me everything along the way. He made fun of his picture in the encyclopedia. And then when he signed my book, I had him sign the page that had sort of like the Ace and Eights guys all sort of standing together before the program is what they call it. But and it has all the books in there. The programs, they said, were made once a year before the lockdown pay-per-view, so it wasn't really up to date. Bully Ray still had his own page. He didn't have an Ace and Eights page, and the Ace and Eights guys still all had masks on there, except for Doc and Devon, who had been unmasked at that point. But on the page was Luke Gallows, Wes Briscoe, Garrett Bischoff was on there. The guy that ended up being the technician that was at ringside, who got in the ring. Austin Aries ripped his mask off. I think everybody remembers that shit. But he was on there, and like when he gets it, he just takes his marker and he scribbled on Gallows' face and wrote, "That guy's a dork. This guy didn't make it. This guy's gone." So so it ends up being a picture of just him, because he's crossed everybody else out, and he signed it for me, which was pretty bitchin'. I don't look at the autographs that I have in my programs. I sort of stash them away for another date and another time. But it was cool to have that one. That's gonna be in there for the future. Hernandez was a cool straight up dude. What the fuck did I talk to Hernandez? I talked to Hernandez that night so much that I don't even really remember everything that we said that was there. When I met Chavo, he ended up being a nicer guy, honestly, than I thought he was. He was a real good dude for the autograph session. He asked me where I was at, he asked me where I was from, and I said that I'd come from Sacramento, and he said Sacramento was a good town, and I just asked him if do you have any good stories about being in Sacramento, because honestly, I always think of Sacramento as sort of like a dump town that, people don't want to come to, because that's always one of the things about our Sacramento Kings, is that we can't get free agents, is because free agents don't want to come to Sacramento because there's nothing to do here. Except for the arena. The Sacramento Kings are sort of the biggest deal that we have, and excluding that, it sucks. I mean, the biggest players that we've had sign here, the biggest free agent we've ever signed is Vlade Divac, and the biggest guys that we've ever had play here as stars was Chris Webber and Mike Bibby. Both of those guys we achieved through trades, and we were able to sign them because we had a winning team at the time, and that's why they stayed here. But I don't think anybody ever really liked here. But he went and he was working out at the personal gym at Arco Arena, and that gym is the same gym that the Sacramento Kings use. They're lucky enough that they're able to go in there and use the stuff. And as he was working out, the players were in there as well. And one of the players was Oliver Miller. You're gonna have to look up Oliver Miller if you don't know who he is. But he was telling me that Oliver Miller walked up to him, knew who he was, and said, "Hey, Chavo, I thought you were gonna be taller in real life." And honestly, he's the exact same height that I thought he was going to be. Now, he's a good looking dude. He's never really looked like he's not supposed to be a wrestler to me, but he immediately answered back to Oliver Miller that Oliver Miller, "I thought you were going to be a lot skinnier in real life." Because, I don't know. You got to look it up. Oliver Miller was one of the biggest basketball players to ever live. Not height-wise, but wide-wise. And so it was funnier to me because I knew who Oliver Miller was, but that was some funny shit for me. From there, moved over. Shit, I was doing pretty good on who was all in the first session, but now I sort of forgot who was on the wall. The Bromans were over there. I was able to get the Bromans. Went through Eric Young, Joseph Park, Velvet Sky, and Christopher Daniels. No, not Christopher Daniels. Daniels was with Cass. Alex Shelley wasn't there. Chris Sabin was over there. For a guy that had just won the belt, it was kind of, I don't know, they had him and Velvet next to each other for reasons, because they kept everybody together. That was sort of like a couple. Bully Ray and Brooke were right next door to each other, throughout the weekend. and so they had Chris Sabin next to him. But Velvet always had a huge line. Sabin's line was respectable, but it wasn't that long at the same time. I was able to meet everybody in that session with no problems. I walked up, I met Velvet twice, and I was able to get one for me. I was able to get one for my friend Victor that lives here in Sacramento and asked me to get one. And that was cool. And then we sort of, we went to, oh, and in the first section, Dixie Carter came out. She wasn't there the whole time, but she came out there. She was there for probably the last half hour to 45 minutes, and she didn't have a table or anything. She sort of just stood in the center of the room, and everybody just walked up and got pictures with her, pretty easy. We walked over, and this was when Bob Ryder came up to me and asked me if we were having fun at the fan access, and I told him that it was going good, but we were worried about meeting Sting because the Sting signing was only an hour, and we wanted to make sure that we met him so we didn't miss anything in the second session. And he said, well, I'm just about to start the line. And I said, well, I would like to be in that line. So I went with Bob Ryder. We walked over, and he put us at the spot we were supposed to be in for the signing. He said, here, stay here, and you'll actually be the first to meet Sting. And it was like, oh, wow, I'll be the first guy to meet Sting, because I wanted to meet him because he was a part of the Access deal, but I never really been the hugest, real big Sting fan, so it wasn't like a big, like, woo kind of deal. Honestly, I just sort of walked in, talked to Sting for a second, signed my shit, took the picture. He gave me another 8x10 that he had in his stack, and I took that. Walked over, and like immediately, by the time I had walked from one side of the room to the other, Jimmy J was sitting there, and he'd already had a picture printed out, and he handed it to me, and I was like, wow. I mean, like, whatever process they were using, they were taking a picture and printing a picture, which seemed like within 10 seconds, and it was already in your hand. When I had met Jeff Hardy in Sacramento, we weren't the first to meet him, so maybe some logjam happened along the way, but it seemed like we took our picture and we had to wait there for what seemed like an eternity before somebody handed it to us, and we were able to walk off with our picture. But that was meeting Sting. They had taken we had one real long room. There was like everybody was in one sort of corner of the room, sort of surrounded like in sort of a circle. They had Shop TNA sort of set up in a separate corner, and that was chilling over there. And then sort of when they got ready to do the Sting signing, what they did was they pulled the curtains like in an old school classroom, but it was like a real, I think they call it a partition, and they sort of cornered off one side of the room, so you sort of walked in one door and went out another door, and it sort of made it really fast and really easy where no one was going to get in your way. I honestly wish that I probably wasn't first in the Sting line. It wasn't that I was rushed or anything like that, but I sort of really didn't get to, like, when you walk in the door and the guy's already standing there, and you're not, like, sometimes, like, you get a little bit more of a rush when you're standing there, and then, like, you're sort of seeing the guy, and you're like, oh, shit, there he is right there. Walked from there, I walked over, and we were able to immediately go right into session number 2, and they'd already changed out all the signs. We went into the James Storm sign because he's honestly my favorite dude. The Jeff Hardy line got really long, really fast, and he was honestly probably the most over guy. But like I said, I did have one figure that I really, really wanted to get signed for meeting Hardy, so I did have to get in that line somewhere along the way. But we met Storm. When I got done meeting Storm, I was immediately gotta go over to one side of the room so I could make the circle and just do the room like that. But there was nobody in the Gunner line, so I immediately met Gunner. And that was cool. I sort of felt bad for Gunner that nobody was in his line, but it was just easier to meet him that way. Walked over, and then we just sort of circled the room real fast. We knocked everybody out from the second session in an hour. I met Taz twice. I met Bully Ray twice. The first time I met Taz, I just got his autograph and I got his picture, and sort of did some small talk for a second. When I met Bully Ray, I was a dumbass. I had the Aces and Eights shirt, and I'd put it on when I met Garrett, when I met Taz, when I met Knox, and so like when I met Bully Ray, for some reason I forgot to put the shit back on. So I was wearing my fucking James Storm shirt, so I had to go back and retake that shirt. When we were waiting in the Brook line, there was a young kid. Oh, the same motherfucker. There was like a 10-year-old in the bar all night long. All 3 nights. There was like a 10-year-old that closed the bar down every night. Like, they didn't really kick anybody out. And it was just surprising because there was a lot of people in the bar that were of like the 18 to 20 range that looked like they could pull off being 21 if they were asked, so like nobody fucked with them. But then they're like there was just this kid that nobody knew who he was or where he came from, but he was in the bar until like they kicked us out every night. It was funny, but as he met Brooke and he met Bully Ray, he gave him these like sort of 2 keychains, and one was a penguin and one was something else. There were these 2 fuzzy little animals, and and like Brooke was like, "Oh, they're cute. Look, Bully, look," and like, yeah, he gave me one too, and he was trying to brush the situation off, and Brooke's like, "I think we should make him kiss." And like here in front of everybody, and like she was like, yeah, and so they did it, and you could tell that he like it was all for fun and games, you know, but it was for us, but like it was a pop. It was pretty fucking fun. I don't know, like we blew through that second session, you know, pretty fast. We stood in the Hardy line. The Hardy line was the longest line to wait for. He signed us as much shit there at the Access deal as much as possible. The people that worked the Access deal were really cool. I talked to the one of the girls at the Storm deal, and she said what the deal was that you volunteered to work it. You got to meet all the wrestlers that were there. You got to meet Sting. So it was sort of like you didn't have to pay for being there. You just had to stand there, and then at the end you were able to meet them all really fast. So it's sort of like I guess you can say they got paid $225 because I think that's what it would have cost if you would have bought the Access and then you would have bought the Sting deal. So I mean, I think that was a pretty good deal. Nobody really got out of control of those deals. They just sort of stand there, and they had to make sure that everybody had somebody to take their picture. And if they didn't have somebody, then they did it for them. So it was pretty cool. But as I was standing there, and I was in the front of the Storm line, I got tired of holding the stuff that I was going to do. I had his beer money figure. I had his place kept in the program, and I was just sort of waiting it out. And so I had set my stuff on the little table that they had set up for him, and it had some waters, it had some 8x10s, and somebody came over and said he's gonna have his belt with him when he comes out here, so make sure he's got room. So I took that as like, okay, I'll pick my stuff up. That's no problem. And I was joking around with the girl. I said, well, you're gonna need to get that water off there because Storm doesn't drink water. He's gonna want beer. So make sure you head on over to the bar. You should probably get him a 6-pack and bring that over here. And Storm made his way over, and as he was waiting to sign for me, the first thing he did, I swear to God, was he picked up the big stack of markers. They had probably 20 Sharpies that were on the table. He picked those up. He put 2 of them on the chair that he had there, and he threw the rest on the ground. He grabbed the 3 water bottles, he picked up the 3 water bottles of these figures, and he fucking chucked them. Just like that. He threw them across the room. He put his beer down that he had brought out with him on the table, and he sort of moved the 8x10s over, and he goes, all right, let's get this shit started. Let's go. And I was like, wow, that was probably the coolest shit that I had ever seen before. And I looked at the girl and I said, I told you he doesn't drink the water. I told you to get rid of it. And then as I was standing there, I was like, I told that girl to get rid of that water. And she should have known better. She just should have known. But it was cool to find out that all those people that were working the Access were real wrestling fans, that they wanted to be there and stuff like that. The interaction with Storm was pretty cool. Nobody had a problem with anything at the Access deal. I don't know how many people were in there. If you were waiting to meet any of the wrestlers, you never waited more than just a couple of minutes. Hardy was the only one. AJ Styles was the only one that you probably had to wait 20 minutes for at the most. Bully had a little bit of a line. And everything else was pretty chill. It was pretty laid back. We met everybody around the circle. I met Brooke twice. I met Bully twice. I met Taz twice. Um, just trying to make sure that all the pictures that we got were the best pictures we could have got. Everybody was everything was damn cool, and it was already at that point we had already felt like we met everybody so many times from being at the bar the night before that we were just sort of done. As we walked out of the place, we walked through the lobby, and Al Snow was just sitting there. Somebody had caught his attention as being there, so Al was signing pictures. He was taking autographs. They were trying to run him off, telling him that they had a meeting that they had to get him to. He wanted to leave. At the same point, he wanted to make sure that he didn't leave anybody hanging along the way. From there, we didn't have shit until the Hall of Fame. I think we went up to the room, and we were just sort of going to get our shit ready and get dressed. I sort of sprawled out on the bed, just to lay there for a minute, because we didn't get much sleep the night before. Ended up taking a nap, falling asleep. So we were watching Friday the 13th, and woke up sort of like in a frantic a few hours later. We didn't have to be downstairs to the Hall of Fame, which I think started at 7, and sort of we woke up around 5:30. So we had plenty of time. We went into the Hall of Fame. It was kind of weird. They were trying to make sure that the travel package and the VIP people sat in the back, and the other people sat up front. But when we were sitting there, we got set at a second row table, which we thought was pretty cool for the Hall of Fame. But Willie Urbina, or whatever his name is, the Spanish announcer that's not Hector Guerrero, sat at our table. And it was like, oh shit. So like we sat there just sort of looking at each other for 5 minutes. Mario spoke to him, and they spoke back and forth in Spanish for a while, and it was sort of like, well, we have to make the best of a best situation. So I tried to talk to him as much as I could. I think everybody knows that I talk pretty fucking fast, and I think that was the main problem, because I would have to talk to him, and then he would look at me like, what the fuck? And Mario would have to talk to him in Spanish about what I was saying, and then he would sort of answer him in Spanish, then Mario would have to talk to me. So it was like talking through a translator, which wasn't that fun, but he spilled his guts about the Impact, going back to the Impact Zone. In November, he told us that. Talked to him about Sin Cara and what Sin Cara should do. If Sin Cara could be a star if he went to TNA once his WWE deal was done. Talked about Sting going to WWE for a long, long time. And he was trying to work out some sort of a situation that would be the best. And he was sort of saying the best situation that Sting could do would be just sort of like do an old school developmental trade, where Sting would go there for one match and then he would come back. It would make TNA look big because he wrestled at WrestleMania, give them more coverage, that they can get their name out there, and then they wouldn't have to do the long sort of drawn out thing of what the fuck did we do with Sting now that he wrestled this one match, what else are we going to do with him? So basically saying that like WWE only needed him for one night, and that was going to be it. And I thought that was pretty cool, to get that stuff out of him. I looked around, my buddies, they were sitting at a table that Jeff Hardy sat at, and they said he was really, really deep and went into a ton of stuff, describing some move that he was wanting to do and during the Ultimate X match, which he ended up not doing. Why didn't he said that it was going to involve him being caught by 3 guys, and he was going to have to run and pass them. And he said there was a good chance somebody might get hurt, but if it was done right, it'd be fine. But I guess he got vetoed on doing his move, because I never really saw him pull anything off that was kind of crazy. Some other friends sat with James Storm, who faked us out because Storm walked right by our table. We could have swore that he was going to sit down with us. Magnus and Samoa Joe was at some other friends' tables, but they had talked to Magnus and Samoa Joe so much the night before at the meet and greet when we got there that they said they didn't really have a whole bunch of this stuff to talk to. Had some people that sat with Brooke Tessmacher and Bully Ray. Said Bully sat there as long as he could, but he just sort of didn't want to be at the table with the friends anymore, or with the fans anymore. So he just sort of got up and walked away and came back once the thing started. But they said there was somebody there at the table that was asking some just really stupid questions, and even Brooke was like, they would ask the question, and then Brooke would just sort of like shake her head, roll her eyes, put the fake smile on, and then answer the question because she was trying to be as nice as possible, even though she was having to make the best of a bad situation. Honestly, when it came down to it, I saw a lot of wrestlers that seemed like they really liked doing the dinner with the fans. Um, but it seemed like there was a lot of wrestlers at the same time that didn't want to be there. Um, Somebody who sat at Austin Aries' table said that Austin Aries didn't really say anything the whole night. He just sort of sat there, ate his food, watched the show. But they were saved because Al Snow was at the table, and Al Snow talked the whole time. So I don't know why they would pair Al Snow and Austin Aries up, but maybe that was just to make sure that Aries was on his best behavior, or make sure that he could save the show or something like that. But we got Willie at the end of the night. I don't think it was horrible. It would have been fun to have the other people at the other tables, but I don't know. The Sting conversation, the Impact Zone stuff, talking about the places they had wrestled on the road, and him going into, well, he really, really broke down Hulk Hogan, and he really, really broke down the whole WCW sort of feeling that a lot of those guys brought to the table. He said that if these guys came from WWE, if they came from the Indies, any of these guys were the nicest guys in the world. If there was guys that came and they had wrestled for WCW at any point in their career, those guys were the ultimate politicers. The big name that he's really said, and when he said it real loud, was Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner always wanted something in return for whatever he was doing. If he was giving something, he wanted two things back. So he was somebody that was really, really hard to work with. That night, after the Hall of Fame, we went back to the bar. Everybody was sort of like in this sort of panic, frantic mode because we had found out the night before the bar closed so early. It was supposed to close at 11, but basically because there were so many people in there, they kept serving. But it wasn't like the service got any better knowing that they were making any money. The waitresses were really, really nice that walked around. All of them were in a good mood. They all knew they were getting paid overtime and they were making some money. It was the bartender. The bartender was a fucking dick. If you ordered a drink, he let you know that he was supposed to close an hour ago and that he was in a bad mood, and he had to let this be known, and then it took you a while to get your drink, and I think it really affected. I'm sure some people still really tip this dude, but when some guy is really gonna lay you on the guilt trip for you that he we know he's making overtime and he's making his money, and most of these, I don't know anybody who doesn't really tip that well, the bartender that well. You got to tip the bartender well if you want good drinks. I mean, that's if you gotta tip anybody well in the world, it's that guy, or he's gonna give you a Jack and Coke that is like all the Coke in the world and no Jack. He's not gonna give you your bang for your buck. If you treat that guy well, you might end up ordering a Jack and Coke, which is like all Jack with a drop of Coke on the top. You know what I'm saying? It's just about taking care of the people that are to take care of you. But the guy was a dick. So basically, all the wrestlers were trying to find a bar that was going to go to. That was why it was good that we made a friend with somebody who lived in San Diego. And he was really saying, like, this is where we should go, this is where we should go. And the wrestlers wanted to walk there. But he was like, honestly, there's not a place that's going to be open that we can walk to that's going to be that good. We got to go to this place called McGregor's. So basically, they all wanted to go, so this guy just finally fucking called the bluff and said, alright, we're leaving for McGregor's, who's fucking going? And the one guy that jumped up was Hernandez and his guy. So we all piled outside, and he tried to get Nux and another group of guys to come, but they never really followed. And so we all piled in, and he said, alright, go get your car, because we weren't going to take a cab. So the one guy ran, and he got his car, and he pulled it up, and as he pulled it up, it was this Nissan, and we looked at it like, how the fuck are we going to do this? So Hernandez jumped in the front seat, me, the manager, and Mario jumped in the back, and we just were like, we're fucking doing this. Like, we rode over in this car, rode over McGregor's. We made it before last call. We all ordered a beer, and as we were sort of sitting there shooting the shit, the manager guy was really appreciative that we were going over there. Said thank you, for taking us out. He bought us all a shot. and he bought us this shot that was called a pineapple upside down cake. And he said because he likes drinks that get him fucked up, but he buys drinks that doesn't taste like shit going down. So he took this drink, and it tasted good. It just oh, I don't know what the fuck he sent that for me. Oh, I don't know what that is. Zach just sent me a tweet, and it was something about big time wrestling out of Sacramento, California. I'll have to find out what's up with that. But oh shit, I forgot the fuck I was talking about. Oh yeah, we get to the bar, we drink this shot, and we're all hanging out, and as we get kicked out of the bar because it closed at 1:30, Hernandez said he wanted some more beer, so we went over to the 7-Eleven. We all got drinks. Over there, I got a Pepsi and two Monsters because I knew I was gonna need those. They ended up being buy one get one free, so that got made out. It was pretty cool because when we were cashing out in the morning, and no, fuck me. When we were cashing out that night at the 7-Eleven, we put the beer on the table, and everybody was paying for their shit. And Hernandez was in line. And all of a sudden, something caught his eye, and he had to go to the back of the store, and he started grabbing all the shit from where the stuff in the refrigerators were. And I thought he was grabbing like burritos or some shit like that, like to eat. He ended up coming over to the cash register, and he had like a dozen hard-boiled eggs that came with crackers. And he was like, "Well, I'm gonna need to carb up in the morning because I don't have I won't have any time." So as we got in the car and we were driving back to the hotel, we were trying to get out of him, if he was doing the breakfast in the mornings. We had the breakfast and all that shit, and he said that he wasn't doing the breakfast, and because everybody had to be at the show at 10 in order to do the pre-tapes and get all that shit ready. And we were like, well, if we're not getting you, who the fuck are we getting? And he started making jokes about Robbie E being there. I'm like, oh, well, we already got Robbie E another time. And he was like, well, you already got him. I'm a volunteer. I want to be on this list. I want to do his breakfast. Honestly, just so he could wake up later and be there. And, it's a longer story in order to get the whole thing out. But basically, he had told us that no matter if we brought 1,000 signs to the show, they weren't winning the pre-show match, and they weren't going to be on Bound for Glory. That Robbie E was going to win the titles, and we believed him, and I didn't believe him at the same time, but it ended up coming true. And so, should have called the bookies. Damn it! I don't even know if you can bet on TNA wrestling, but it would have been good for me if we could have, because I don't think anybody in the world thought that the bromans were really walking out of there with the straps. But we went back to the hotel. We all got on the elevator. As we were going on the elevator ride up, he stopped at his floor. I guess it's safe to say because he ain't staying there no more. But as we stopped on the 9th floor, and we were staying on the 14th floor, we were like getting ready to say goodbye to the guy. He took a step off. We said we were going to see him tomorrow at the show and be ready. And as he took a step off, he looked back at us and he was just like, "Are you coming?"